Have you ever noticed how some people speak with absolute confidence, yet what they say doesn't really make sense? They argue loudly, defend their opinions fiercely, and rarely pause to question themselves. At first glance, it might just look like arrogance or stubbornness. But psychology suggests something deeper may be happening beneath the surface. Because intelligence is not always revealed through test scores or academic success. Very often, it quietly reveals itself through small habits repeated every single day. The way we process information, react to disagreement, or handle curiosity can reveal more about our minds than we realize. When psychologists examine these everyday behaviors, a clear pattern begins to appear. Certain habits are consistently linked to weaker cognitive patterns. If you enjoy exploring how the human mind works, you're always welcome to subscribe and stay with the channel. Now let's take a closer look at the daily habits psychology often associates with lower cognitive patterns. 1. Passive consumption without reflection. One of the most subtle habits psychologists notice is passive consumption of information. Hours of scrolling through social media, endless videos playing in the background. A constant stream of entertainment entering the mind without pause. At first, it seems harmless. After all, everyone consumes content. But the difference lies in what happens after the information enters the brain. Neuroscientists explain that when the brain continuously absorbs information without reflection, the regions responsible for deeper reasoning, particularly the prefrontal cortex, remain relatively inactive. Instead of analyzing ideas, the brain simply receives them. Over time, this can slowly reduce the habit of questioning, comparing, and evaluating information. Yet this pattern does not necessarily reflect a lack of intelligence. In many ways, it reflects the brain's natural tendency toward efficiency. Deep thinking requires energy, and the brain, like any biological system, often chooses the path that consumes the least amount of it. What appears to be cognitive laziness may sometimes be nothing more than the mind following its most energy-efficient path. 2. Reacting immediately instead of pausing. Another common pattern is reacting instantly to situations. A comment online triggers anger. A disagreement sparks defensiveness. Words are spoken before thoughts have time to form. Psychologists describe this as impulsive emotional reactivity. In these moments, the emotional centers of the brain, especially the amygdala, activate faster than the areas responsible for regulation and reflection. This means the response is driven by emotion rather than deliberate thought. However, this pattern also has deep evolutionary roots. Thousands of years ago, the ability to react quickly to danger often meant survival. Our ancestors did not have time to calmly analyze every threat. What we sometimes interpret as poor judgment may actually be the echo of an ancient survival system that still operates inside the modern brain. 3. Avoiding mentally demanding activities. Some individuals consistently choose the easiest cognitive path. They prefer simple entertainment, familiar conversations, and predictable routines rather than complex discussions or challenging ideas. Neuroscience refers to this tendency as cognitive effort avoidance. The brain naturally prefers tasks that require less mental energy. Complex thinking activates large neural networks, consumes more oxygen, and demands greater concentration. Because of this, the brain often defaults to activities that feel mentally lighter. But this behavior rarely develops in isolation. In many cases, it reflects environments where intellectual curiosity was not encouraged or rewarded. Over time, the brain simply adapts to the level of stimulation it regularly receives. What looks like intellectual limitation may sometimes be nothing more than an understimulated cognitive system. 4. Difficulty changing beliefs. Another habit psychologists frequently observe is resistance to changing beliefs. Even when new evidence appears, some individuals continue defending their original position. Psychology calls this cognitive rigidity. The brain prefers stable belief systems because they provide predictability and reduce uncertainty. Updating beliefs requires effort. It forces the brain to restructure existing mental frameworks and reevaluate previous conclusions. For this reason, many people unconsciously protect their existing beliefs. Interestingly, this rigidity also serves a psychological purpose. Stable belief systems help individuals maintain a consistent sense of identity and order in the world. Without that stability, the mind can easily become overwhelmed by constant uncertainty. 5. Dependence on other people's opinions. Another recognizable pattern is heavy reliance on other people's opinions. Instead of analyzing information independently, some individuals prefer waiting for others to tell them what to think or believe. Psychologists describe this mindset as an external locus of control. But from an evolutionary perspective, this behavior is deeply human. For most of history, survival depended on collective knowledge. Early human communities shared information about food, danger, and resources. Trusting the group was often safer than relying on individual judgment alone. In modern environments, however, excessive dependence on external opinions can limit independent reasoning. The same social instinct that once strengthened communities can sometimes weaken personal analysis. 6. Absolute certainty in one's knowledge. Perhaps one of the most fascinating psychological patterns is unwavering confidence in one's understanding. Some individuals speak with absolute certainty, even when their knowledge is limited. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect. When people possess only a small amount of knowledge about a topic, they often lack the awareness needed to recognize how much they still do not know. This creates an illusion of mastery. Ironically, the more someone learns about a subject, the more aware they become of its complexity. True expertise often brings humility, while limited understanding can create misplaced confidence. 7. Constant pursuit of instant gratification. Another behavior, frequently associated with weaker cognitive patterns, is the constant search for immediate rewards. Checking phones repeatedly. Abandoning long projects for quick distractions. Choosing comfort today instead of long-term benefit. Neuroscientists link this behavior to the brain's dopamine reward system. Dopamine reinforces actions that produce quick pleasure. In ancient environments, this system helped humans seize opportunities, quickly finding food, responding to danger, or securing resources. In modern digital environments filled with constant stimulation, however, the same system can become overstimulated. The brain becomes accustomed to immediate rewards and gradually loses tolerance for delayed gratification. 8. Personal attacks instead of logical arguments. During disagreements, some individuals respond by attacking the person rather than addressing the idea. Psychologists call this the ad hominem fallacy. Instead of analyzing arguments logically, the conversation shifts toward personal criticism. From a psychological perspective, this reaction often emerges when beliefs become deeply tied to personal identity. When someone challenges those beliefs, the brain interprets it as a threat to the self. The defensive reaction that follows is less about logic and more about self-protection. In many ways, it reveals how strongly humans associate ideas with identity. 9. Lack of curiosity. Curiosity is one of the strongest engines of human learning. Yet some individuals show little interest in exploring unfamiliar ideas. They remain within the boundaries of what they already know. Cognitive science suggests curiosity emerges when the brain detects a knowledge gap, a sense that something important is missing. When environments discourage questioning or exploration, this gap may never activate. Without that trigger, curiosity remains dormant. In this sense, a lack of curiosity is not always a sign of limited intelligence, but often the result of environments that did not reward exploration. 10. Difficulty recognizing personal mistakes. Finally, psychologists often observe difficulty acknowledging personal mistakes. When errors occur, the mind instinctively searches for explanations that protect self-esteem. This tendency is known as self-serving bias. Success is attributed to personal ability, while failure is blamed on external circumstances. While this bias can limit learning, it also serves an important psychological function. Protecting self-esteem helps individuals maintain motivation and emotional resilience. Without it, repeated failure could easily lead to discouragement or loss of confidence. In many ways, this bias reflects the mind's effort to preserve psychological balance. When we step back and look at these everyday habits together, something interesting appears. They are not simply signs of low intelligence. They are often the mind's way of protecting comfort, saving energy, and making the world feel more predictable. Human thinking is not perfect. It is adaptive. Sometimes the same mental shortcuts that limit deeper understanding are also the ones that help us move through life without becoming overwhelmed by complexity. So these habits are not a final judgment about a person's mind. They are simply patterns that quietly shape how we see the world, how we react to it, and how we grow within it. And understanding those patterns is often the first step toward understanding the mind itself.